Hi everyone, my name is Clodagh Scannell. I'm a registered dietitian and I work in the oncology unit in the Mercy University Hospital in Cork. I'm also a PhD researcher in the area of cancer and nutrition, and I work with the Clinical Nutrition and Oncology Research Group, which is based out of UCC. And today, on behalf of Cushnor, I'm here to present on kind of food myths and fad diets in relation to cancer. So I suppose from the get-go, I'll just let everyone know, you might be disappointed to hear, so that there's no magic diet, there's no magic eating pattern, there's no silver bullet with regards to curing cancer, preventing cancer recurrence, which is quite disappointing to hear, but I suppose that's just what the research shows. So with, I suppose, a cancer diagnosis and going through treatment, there's a lot going on outside of your control. So you have to go to appointments, you have to get your bloods done, you have to turn up for your chemotherapy, your immunotherapy, your radiotherapy. It can have a massive strain on you. So there's a lot that you can't control. So adding the extra stress of trying to follow some kind of random fad diet, there's just no need for it. There's no need for restriction. It's just going to, I suppose, reduce your own quality of life trying to follow a diet that's very unpalatable and that's very difficult to adhere to. So I'm going to touch on some of these today. And I suppose as a dietitian who works in oncology, I get questions about this all the time. What can I do? What can I take? People have looked to Google. They've seen things like, I suppose, organic food, vegan diets, ketogenic diets. The list could go on. And I suppose from my perspective, it's very obvious to see why people think like this. If you go online, if you go onto social media, there's lots of information out there. And I suppose what we need to remember with the internet is that it's not regulated. So anyone can say anything on there, and there's no one kind of checking in on it or fact checking to see that this is true. So if you have been diagnosed with cancer, and you're looking for information about nutrition, you need to speak to a dietitian. A dietitian is the only regulated healthcare professional in Ireland who is able to assess, diagnose and treat a nutritional issue in someone who is vulnerable, who is unwell, who is sick. Dietitians are the only healthcare professionals that are, I suppose, nutrition specific, that can work in a hospital setting. So if you have questions and you want to know more, ask to speak to a dietitian. They will give you, I suppose, no nonsense, no agenda advice. If you go to the internet, it's likely that someone is trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you their book. They're trying to sell you this magic supplement that they think is going to work. And if someone is trying to sell you something, they probably don't have your best interest at heart. So that's just something to be mindful of, that you want the best advice, so go to properly qualified individuals. So I'm just going to touch on, I suppose, some of the myths and kind of questions that I would get asked quite regularly in practice. So the first one being, can you starve cancer? And in short, no, there's no evidence to support that you can starve cancer. Cancer cells are really, really resilient, and it would be naive of us to think that we could just simply starve them and they would go away. The only things that we know that actually target and kill cancer are the treatments that your oncologist will prescribe. So something like an immunotherapy, a chemotherapy, a radiotherapy. Cancer cells are really resilient. If you reduce the amount that you're eating, they'll just start to, I suppose, eat into your own body's stores and reserves. And all that's going to do is make, I suppose, yourself less resilient and less able to cope with the treatment and with the side effects of treatment. So starving yourself will only reduce your own overall immunity, and then you'll have poorer tolerance to treatment, increased complications, you'll feel tired, your quality of life will disimprove. With that then, following on, another one that I get asked quite regularly is, does sugar feed cancer? And there's no evidence to support that we should be excluding any food groups, really. So we need everything in moderation, but sugar is one that I suppose people have kind of latched onto. And I think this is because there was studies done hundreds of years ago where sugar was put in kind of like a petri dish, which is something that we use in the lab, and there was cancer cells put in on top of it. And the cancer did kind of interact and engage with the sugar cells. And I suppose it's important to know that had you probably put anything into the petri dish, the cancer would have latched onto it. So it's not just sugar specific, but I think this story kind of grew legs and tails and whatever, and we're here now today still talking about it. But the way that when we eat food, it all breaks down. So whether we eat whether we eat breads, cereals, whatever, it all breaks down into something called glucose. And glucose is another name for sugar, but all the cells in our body need glucose. So if we are, I suppose, depriving ourselves of glucose, then we're just going to be overall less resilient. If we take away sugar, we take away glucose, the cancer cells, they're resilient. They're just going to start eating protein or fat or whatever. They'll adapt really, really quickly, and eating more sugar isn't going to speed up how fast your tumor grows. Likely, reducing down how much sugar we have isn't going to impact our tumor. So as long as we need to, I suppose, focus on eating well and eating a nice mix of everything in moderation, that's probably where we most see the significant links with cancer. Another thing I get asked very regularly is about kind of herbal remedies and kind of specific herbal supplements. So at the moment, there's no evidence to support any benefit of like a herbal remedy. So these are things that are like wheatgrass juice maybe, or like ginger, or like turmeric, or some people take like St. John's wort, for example. And with these, there is no evidence to support that they'll have any benefit for your cancer. But what emerging evidence is actually showing now is that these compounds and these herbal remedies can actually reduce the effectiveness of your chemotherapy. So if you're going through treatment and you're taking maybe something like a St. John's wort, that can actually reduce the effectiveness of the chemotherapy. And a lot of people aren't aware of this. So if you are taking a herbal remedy or you're taking some kind of supplement, let your oncology team know. It's best that they're aware of this. Again, I'd be very, very cautious with something that you're buying online. You can get a lot of herbal remedies online and they don't go through, I suppose, the same scrutiny, and they don't fall under the same regulation that something on the shelf in Ireland would. Even with, I suppose, herbal remedies that you get in the health food shop, the active ingredient can be very different than what's on the packaging. So it would just be something to be very cautious of, that I suppose these kind of things can cause more damage than good. Another thing I get asked about quite regularly is superfoods, and can superfoods help with cancer? Can they prevent cancer? Can they cure cancer? And a superfood, it's just, I suppose, a marketing term that's kind of come to light. Some foods that I can think of that have been referred to as superfoods are something like kale, I think spinach, blueberries, raspberries, all these kind of foods. And yes, these are all good foods. So they're full of, I suppose, anti-cancer properties like antioxidants, minerals and vitamins, and they are good for you. But the superfood term is just kind of a marketing tool to get you to eat more. So eating all these foods together with a nice mix of carbohydrates and proteins and fats, yes, that's going to be beneficial for preventing cancer, but those foods on their own isn't going to do much. And I think it'd be naive of us to think that maybe eating blueberries or eating raspberries is going to cure cancer. The only thing we know that can cure cancer, as I said, is the treatments that have been prescribed by your oncologist. Again, eating blueberries or eating kale or whatever superfood you can think of isn't going to undo a healthy diet. So if maybe you're smoking or you're drinking or you're not consuming a lot of good foods, you're putting a lot of pressure on the superfood to prevent or to cure your cancer. And we consume foods in a very complex food matrix. So it's kind of the combination of, say, all the fruits and vegetables and all those foods together is where we get the benefit. One single food on their own isn't going to help. Following on from that, then I do get asked a lot about kind of detox diets and juicing diets, which kind of they claim to remove the toxins from the body, I think is how they're supposed to work. But there's no evidence to support these theories. If you have a liver and you have kidneys, that's where the detoxifying happens. So your body is well able to detoxify it on its own. It doesn't need any green juices or any kind of juices to help it. So with these diets, what is usually, I suppose people usually do, is they do like an exclusive juicing diet. So they only consume juice for however many days. And there's lots of, I suppose, negative effects that can come from this. So firstly, juice is very low in calories, it's very low in protein. And we know that if we're going through treatment, we need to keep our weight steady, we need to keep ourselves replenished and topped up to cope with the side effects of treatment. So we need lots of energy and we need lots of protein, and you're not going to get that from juice alone. It can also cause kind of a nutritional inadequacy. So you might not be getting an adequate amount of minerals and vitamins, or you might be getting way too many of it. So that can also cause kind of a negative impact on our body. It can also cause kind of an electrolyte imbalance, which can then damage our kidneys. So juice, so it's not recommended, I suppose, from that regard. Again, if we're going through treatment, we might be experiencing nausea, or we might be feeling kind of gastrointestinal issues, like constipation or diarrhea, and juicing, those diets are only going to kind of make it worse. So these are not recommended, potentially in moderation, but not as an exclusive diet. Another one then that I get asked about quite a bit is the ketogenic diet. So this used to be known as kind of the Atkins diet, I think, and it's essentially kind of a low carbohydrate diet that's very high in fat. So these diets are notoriously hard to follow, so they're very unpalatable and they're very difficult, I suppose, to plan correctly. So I suppose they're not recommended. There's no evidence to support this. And what these types of a diet can do, they can actually cause fatigue because you're not getting your energy from carbohydrates. They can cause a micronutrient deficiency because you're not consuming things like fruits and vegetables. They can cause severe weight loss, which is not recommended when we're going through cancer treatment. The aim is to keep your weight steady. Again, they can cause dehydration, loss of gastrointestinal discomfort, headaches, constipation, and essentially potential renal damage as well. Another thing then I get asked quite regularly is, should I be taking supplements while going through my cancer treatment? And in short, the answer is no. So if you are consuming a healthy, balanced diet, so a diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables, that has cereals, breads, rice, pastas, all those kind of things, dairy, or if you're a vegetarian or vegan, a fortified alternative, and then you're having, say, meat, fish, poultry, or say beans, lentils, rice, pulses, getting your protein in there, and then like a sparingly amount of oils, nuts and seeds, and getting your fats from there, then no, you don't need a supplement. But I suppose there are some exceptions. So because of our climate and we don't see the sun that often, everyone in Ireland should be taking a vitamin D tablet. They kind of say between kind of Halloween and Patrick's Day, because that's kind of when we see the least of the sun. So that's probably a good idea. If you exclude certain foods from your diet, so if you're, say, a vegan and you exclude meat, you might need maybe something like B12. Or if you've gone to your doctor, they've done a blood test, they've seen that you've low iron, you might need an iron tablet, you might need a blood transfusion. So they're all I suppose the exceptions. But look, if you're struggling then with eating the healthy, balanced diet, you have a poor appetite, you're not getting enough food into you, then perhaps then you need a supplement. But again, this is something that should be, I suppose, discussed with you by a dietitian or by your doctor, and not something that is decided upon on your own. You should only be getting your recommendations from a doctor or your dietitian. But if you are taking a supplement, let your doctor or your dietitian know, because as I said earlier, those certain supplements can interact with your chemotherapy and they can make it less effective. So I haven't touched on everything here today. There's a lot more kind of fads and myths that we've kind of seen in practice. So myself and a team of dietitians in University College Cork, alongside a consultant medical oncologist, have kind of devised, I suppose, it's an evidence-based resource, but it basically touches on kind of all the fad diets and all the myths that we've heard in our own practice. It's kindly sponsored by Breakthrough Cancer Research. It's available on their website. You can also get hard copies, and there's a lot more information about everything that I've spoken about today in that.